Captain Hyan-Woo stood at the front window of his ship and watched the huge alien world grow bigger and bigger as they got closer. The planet called Valthara looked nothing like Earth, with its 3 purple moons and bright green oceans that sparkled. Under the light of 2 suns, he had never seen anything so beautiful and scary at the same time. Behind him, his small crew worked at their control panels. The ship called Soul's Pride was not very big compared to the massive alien ships they had. Passed on their way here, it looked like a tiny fish swimming next to giant whales. But this little ship carried something very important: the first humans to ever visit the Galactic Empire. Lieutenant Hyjin walked up to him and pointed at the alien ships around them. "Captain, look at the size of those things," she said with wide eyes. "One of their small fighter ships is bigger than our entire vessel." Hyun-Woo nodded but kept his face calm even though his heart was beating fast inside his chest. He knew his crew was nervous. They were all nervous. How could they not be? They were the first humans to travel this far from Earth and meet aliens who had been flying between stars for thousands of years. The radio crackled and a strange voice spoke. In perfect human language, but with a weird accent that sounded like growling. "Human vessel, you will follow the guide ships to the royal landing platform. Do not change course. Do not use your weapon systems. Do not attempt to scan our world." "Yes, sir." Hyan-Woo replied into the radio microphone. "We understand, and will follow your instructions." 2 sleek alien ships appeared on both sides of Soul's Pride. They looked like silver arrows with glowing blue engines. The human ship followed them down through the thick clouds and into the atmosphere of Valthar. Below them, a city stretched out as far as they could see, with buildings that looked like they were made of crystal and metal twisted together in impossible shapes. Flying cars moved in organized lines between the tall buildings and massive bridges connected floating platforms high in the sky. Everything looked so advanced that it made human technology seem like Stone Age tools. Hyan-Woo wondered if bringing his people here was a mistake. The guide ships led them to a huge landing platform that was bigger than most Earth cities. Hundreds of different alien ships sat parked in neat rows. Some looked like birds with metal wings, others were shaped like boxes or spheres, or things that had no Earth comparison at all. Soul's Pride touched down with a soft bump and the engines went quiet. The crew looked at each other with nervous faces. They all knew this moment would change human history forever. Either they would make friends with the galaxy, or they would make enemies that could destroy Earth with a single shot. "Get ready, everyone," Hyan-Woo said as he straightened his blue uniform. "Remember, we represent all of humanity today. Be respectful, but do not let them think we are weak. We are guests here, but we are also equals." The crew put on their best uniforms and checked their translation devices. The aliens had given them these small machines that would help them understand different languages, though most aliens in the Empire spoke the common galactic language that humans called Standard. The ship door opened with a hiss and warm alien air flowed inside. It smelled different, like flowers mixed with metal and something sharp that made their noses tingle. Hyan-Woo stepped out first and his boots touched alien ground for the first time in human history. Waiting for them was a group of the strangest beings he had ever seen. The one in front looked almost human but had blue skin and 4 arms. Another looked like a giant insect walking on 2 legs. A third alien was covered in fur and had a long snout like a Volf but walked upright like a person. "Welcome, humans, to Valthara," said the blue-skinned alien in a voice that sounded like music. "I am Ambassador Kyra of the Diplomatic Corps. You will follow us to meet the Empress." The human crew walked across the landing platform and tried not to stare at all the amazing sights around them. Alien workers stopped their jobs to look at the humans. Some pointed and whispered to each other. Others just stared with expressions that could have been curiosity or dislike. They entered a building that was so tall Hyan-Woo could not see the top even when he bent his head back. The walls were made of some kind of stone that glowed with soft light and showed moving pictures of different alien worlds. Floating platforms carried them up and up through the building past hundreds of floors. Other aliens rode the platforms with them, most ignored the humans, but some watched them with interest. A few made sounds that the translation devices could not understand. One alien that looked like a walking tree actually reached out to touch Hyjin's hair, but pulled back when she looked at it. The platform finally stopped at a floor so high up that Hyan-Woo felt dizzy looking down through the clear walls. They could see the entire city spread out below them like a living map with millions of lights moving in patterns through these doors. Ambassador Kara said as massive golden doors opened in front of them is the Imperial Throne Room. Remember to show proper respect to Her Imperial Majesty Empress Valera. You must kneel when you enter and wait for permission to speak in Wu. Felt his stomach tighten. He had read about this in the briefing materials. Earth's leaders had argued about whether humans should kneel to an alien ruler. Some said it showed respect, others said it showed weakness. In the end, they had decided to follow local customs. The doors opened and they walked into the biggest room any human had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows, and the walls were covered with jewels that sparkled like stars. Hundreds of aliens stood in perfect rows along both sides of a long red carpet that led to a throne made of what looked like solid gold. On the throne sat the most beautiful and terrifying being Haiyan Wu had ever imagined. Empress Valera looked almost human, but her skin was pale white like snow and her eyes were completely black with no white parts visible. Her hair was long and silver and seemed to float around her head like she was underwater. Standing next to the throne was a figure that made Haiyan Wu's blood run cold. It was obviously female, but looked like a cross between a human and a Volf. She had gray fur covering her arms and face yellow, eyes that seemed to glow and pointed ears that twitched as she watched the humans approach. This was clearly a warrior. Her body was covered in scars and she wore armor that looked like it had been through many battles. A long sword hung at her side and her clawed hands rested on the handle like she was ready to draw it at any moment. The human crew walked down the red carpet while hundreds of alien eyes watched their every step. The silence was so complete that Haiyan Wu could hear his own heartbeat. When they reached the throne, Ambassador Kyra and all the other aliens immediately dropped to one knee. And Wu looked at his crew, then at the Empress. He thought about Earth and all the people counting on this mission. He thought about human dignity and what it meant to represent his entire species. Then he made a decision that would change everything. Instead of kneeling, he stood straight and gave a respectful bow like humans did when meeting important people. The entire throne room gasped. The sound echoed off the walls like thunder. Several aliens jumped to their feet and reached for weapons. The Volf-like warrior next to the throne snarled and her hand moved to her sword. "You dare!" The warrior growled in a voice like breaking glass. "You dare disrespect our Empress. You are not worthy to stand in her presence." Human, her yellow eyes burned with fury as she stepped forward, and Haiyan Wu knew that his simple human gesture had just started something that could end very badly for everyone. The Volf-like warrior stepped forward, and her claws extended from her fingers like sharp knives. The sound they made scraping against her armor sent chills down every human spine in the throne room. Her yellow eyes never left Haiyan Wu as she spoke. In a voice full of deadly promise, "I am Captain Mireille of the Royal Guard," she said, and her words came out like a growl. "You have insulted our Empress with your primitive behavior. I challenge you to combat at dawn in the Grand Arena. If you refuse, you prove that humans are cowards as well as fools." Shin Wu felt his crew tense up behind him. He knew they wanted to protect him, but this was something he had to face alone. The entire throne room waited for his answer, and he could feel the weight of human dignity pressing down on his shoulders. "I accept your challenge," he said in a clear voice that carried across the silent room. The aliens began talking all at once in dozens of different languages. The sound was like a storm of voices, but Empress Valera raised one pale hand and silence fell immediately. Her black eyes studied Haiyan Wu with what might have been curiosity or amusement. "Very well," she said in a voice like silver bells. "The duel will take place at dawn in the Grand Arena. According to ancient law, the winner will be judged worthy and the loser will be judged wanting. Let it be recorded that the human accepted honorable combat." That night, Haiyan Wu sat in his small quarters aboard Soul's Pride, trying to prepare for a fight he knew he could not win. Mireille was bigger, stronger, and faster than any human. She had advanced weapons and armor while he only had his steel sword from Earth. His crew tried to help, but what could they do against alien technology? Lieutenant Hai Jin brought him food, but he could barely eat. Sergeant Jin Ho offered to take his place, but they all knew the challenge was personal. Dr. Su Jin checked his injuries from their long journey and shook her head sadly. "Captain," she said quietly, "you know this is suicide. That warrior could tear apart 10 humans without breaking." Sweat maybe, Hyun Woo replied, but someone has to show them that humans do not back down from our principles. If I die, at least I die standing up. Dawn came too quickly, and with it came the sound of alien crowds gathering outside. The grand arena was the biggest building on Valthara and could hold 500,000 spectators today. It seemed like every alien in the city had come to watch the primitive human get destroyed by their greatest warrior. Their arena floor was made of black stone that reflected the morning light like a dark mirror. Tall walls rose up on all sides, covered with seats that were already filled with thousands of different alien species. They had come to see a show, and they expected it to be short and bloody. Hyun Woo walked out onto the arena floor wearing his simple human armor and carrying his steel sword. The crowd noise was deafening as aliens roared and cheered and made sounds he had never heard before. Most of them were clearly betting against him and looking forward to his defeat. Then Mirai entered and the crowd went completely crazy. She wore ceremonial battle armor that gleamed like silver fire and moved with the fluid grace of a natural predator. Her energy sword hummed with power and left glowing trails in the air when she moved it. The difference between them was like comparing a house cat to a tiger. The arena master read the rules in the common language. Both fighters would battle until one yielded or could not continue. Killing was allowed but not required. Weapons and armor were each fighter's choice. Outside interference would result in immediate execution. Begin, the arena master shouted and stepped back quickly. Mirai attacked immediately, moving faster than Hyun Woo thought possible. Her energy blade cut through the air where his head had been a second. Before leaving a line of burning light, he rolled away and came up running as she pursued him with deadly precision. The crowd loved it. They cheered every time Mirai's weapon came close to ending the fight and laughed when Hyun Woo had to scramble away like a frightened animal. She was toying with him, he realized, showing off for the audience before finishing him. But Hyun Woo had not survived military training by giving up easily. He used the arena itself as a weapon, jumping over obstacles and ducking behind stone pillars that decorated the fighting area. When Mirai's energy blade cut through a pillar, the falling stones forced her to dodge, giving him precious seconds. The fight went on longer than anyone expected. Hyun Woo could not match Mirai's speed or strength, but he could think like a human. He used tricks and tactics that no alien warrior had ever seen before. When she expected him to run forward, he went sideways. When she thought he would attack high, he struck low. Mirai began to get frustrated. Her armor was designed for quick battles against honorable opponents who fought in predictable ways, but Hyun Woo fought like someone who had grown up on a world where everything tried to kill you. He used every advantage he could find. The turning point came when Mirai's armor started overheating from extended combat. The energy systems were not designed for long fights, and warning lights began flashing on her chest plate. Hyun Woo noticed this and changed his strategy. Instead of running away, he started forcing her to use more energy. He made her chase him up and down stone steps. He forced her to cut through obstacles. He kept her energy sword active constantly until steam began rising from her armor vents. The crowd started to notice too, and their cheers became more uncertain than disaster struck. In an unexpected way, Mirai leaped onto a high platform to get a better angle for attack, but her overheated armor made her clumsy. The stone cracked under her weight and the entire structure began to collapse. Hyun Woo could have run away and let her fall. He could have waited safely while tons of stone crushed his opponent. Instead, he did something that shocked every alien in the arena. He ran toward the falling debris and pushed Mirai out of the way, taking the impact himself. Both fighters went down in a cloud of dust and broken stone. The arena fell silent as everyone waited to see who would get up first. Slowly, painfully, Hyun Woo climbed to his feet. His armor was cracked and he was bleeding from a dozen cuts, but he was still standing. Mirai lay stunned among the rubble, staring up at him with confusion in her yellow eyes. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you save me?" "Because it was the right thing to do," he replied, and offered her his hand to help her up. She stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment, then looked around at the thousands of watching aliens. Finally, she spoke in a voice that carried across the silent arena. "I yield," she said. "The human has won." The crowd exploded into chaos. Some aliens cheered while others threw things onto the arena floor. Many seemed unable to believe what they had just witnessed. A primitive human had defeated the greatest warrior in the royal guard. through honor and courage rather than strength. Empress Valera stood from her viewing box, and her voice somehow carried over all the noise. According to the ancient laws of combat, Captain Mireille must now serve whoever defeated her in honorable battle. She will accompany the human delegation as our cultural exchange representative. Ray looked up at Haiyan Wu with an expression he could not read. Her yellow eyes held anger and confusion, but also something that might have been respect. For the first time since arriving at Valthara, he felt like maybe humans had a chance in this galaxy after all. 3 days after the duel, Mireille stood on the bridge of Soul's Pride with her arms crossed and her face showing pure anger. She wore a simple gray uniform instead of her royal armor, but she still looked dangerous. Her yellow eyes watched everything. The human crew did as if she was looking for mistakes to criticize. Captain Mireille complained to Haiyan Wu as he studied star charts. This ship is too small, too slow, and too primitive. How do you expect to travel between worlds in this metal box? Haiyan Wu looked up from his work and tried to keep his voice calm. We have traveled from Earth to Valthara in this ship. It may not be pretty, but it works. Our next stop is the mining world of Zarian to discuss trade agreements. Trade agreements, Mireille snorted. Like that was the funniest thing she had ever heard. What could primitive humans possibly trade that civilized worlds would want? Lieutenant Haijin looked up from her control station with an annoyed expression. Maybe they want to trade with people who do not insult their guests every 5 minutes. She said. Mireille's ears flattened against her head, and her claws extended slightly. That sounds like a challenge, little human. Do you wish to test your skills against might enough? Haiyan Wu said firmly. We are all on the same mission now. Fighting among ourselves helps no one. Mireille, you are here to learn about human culture and help with diplomatic relations. If you cannot do that job, then you can stay in your quarters. The alien warrior's eyes flashed with fury, but she said nothing more. She had given her word according to ancient law, and even though she hated the situation, she would not break her oath. That did not mean she had to like it or make things easy for anyone. The journey to Zarian took 2 days, and Mireille spent most of that time questioning everything the humans did. She criticized their food, their sleeping arrangements, their work schedules, and their equipment. She seemed determined to prove that humans were inferior in every possible way. Why do you sleep so much? She asked Dr. Sujin. Canary warriors can go for days without rest. Human bodies are different, Sujin explained patiently. We need 8 hours of sleep each day to stay healthy and alert. Weakness, Mireille muttered. Canary children need less sleep than adult humans. Sergeant Jinho finally lost his temper during dinner on the second day. Look, lady, he said, throwing down his fork, we get it. You think we are weak and stupid, but we are stuck together whether you like it or not, so either learn to get along or shut up. Mireille stood up so fast her chair fell over. Her hand moved to where her sword would normally hang, but she wore no weapons aboard the human ship. Jinho stood up too, and even though he was much smaller than the alien warrior, he did not back down. Stop, Haiyan Wu ordered. Both of you sit down and finish eating. We have work to do. When we reach Zerionthe mining world of Zarian looked like a giant rock covered with holes and tunnels. Huge machines crawled across the surface, digging up valuable metals that the galaxy needed for spaceship construction. The main settlement was built inside a crater to protect it from the harsh winds that never stopped blowing. Haiyan Wu led his team, including Mireille, to meet with the Zarian Trade Council. The meeting was held in a conference room carved out of solid rock and lit by glowing crystals. The council members were a mix of different alien species who had come to this harsh world to make money. We welcome the human delegation, said Council Chief Teho, a tall, thin alien with green skin. Your reputation has spread quickly after the events on Valthara. We are curious to see what Earth has to offer. Before Haiyan Wu could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the settlement. Red lights flashed, and an automated voice announced emergency, emergency. All citizens report to safety shelters immediately. What is happening? Haiyan Wu asked as the council members jumped up from their seats. Pirates, Chief Teho said with fear in his voice. The Void Raiders have found us. Everyone must hide before they destroy everything. Through the conference room windows they could see small fast ships diving down from the sky toward the settlement. Energy weapons lit up the darkness as the raiders attacked mining equipment and storage buildings. Explosions sent fire and debris flying through the air. The Local security forces tried to fight back, but they were miners, not soldiers, their few defensive. Weapons were no match for the pirates' advanced ships. People ran screaming through the streets trying to reach the underground shelters. "We must evacuate immediately," said Ambassador Kyra, who had come with them from Velthara. "Our ship can carry some refugees, but we cannot stay to fight." No, Hyanwu said firmly. "We cannot abandon these people. They need help." "You are insane," Mireille snarled. "What can one small human ship do against a fleet of raiders? This is not our fight, it is now," Hyanwu replied, as he opened his communication device to contact his ship. "Soul's Pride, this is the captain. Prepare all weapons and defensive systems. We are going to protect the settlement." Captain Jinho's voice came back over the radio with obvious worry. "Sir, we are not equipped for space combat against multiple enemy ships." "Then we fight on the ground," Hyanwu said. "Load the cargo bay with every mining explosive you can find and bring the ship down to the settlement. We are going to give these pirates a fight they will never forget." Mireille stared at him like he had lost his mind. "You will get everyone killed, including yourself. These are innocent civilians, not soldiers. That is exactly why we have to help them," Hyanwu replied as he checked his weapons. "They cannot protect themselves, so we will do it for them." For the next 3 hours, the humans and their reluctant alien partner fought the most desperate battle of their lives. They used mining equipment as weapons and turned civilian vehicles into mobile gun platforms. Hyanwu organized the frightened miners into defensive groups while Mireille used her combat experience to plan ambush attacks. The pirates had expected easy prey, but instead found organized resistance that hurt them badly. Every time they landed troops, the defenders struck from unexpected directions, using the maze of mining tunnels to move unseen. Explosions rocked the settlement as both sides fought for control. Mireille found herself fighting beside Hyanwu to protect a group of alien children who were too scared to run to the shelters. She watched him risk his life again and again to save people he had never met before. In the middle of the battle, she began to understand something about humans that no alien had ever taught her. When a pirate energy blast brought down part of a building, Hyanwu threw himself on top of 3 small alien children to shield them from falling debris. The explosion knocked him unconscious and left him bleeding on the ground without thinking. Mireille picked up his unconscious form and carried him to safety while Dr. Sujin worked to save his life. Mireille stood guard with her claws extended, ready to fight anyone who tried to hurt him. The pirates finally gave up and retreated. When they realized the cost was too high for whatever they could steal, the settlement was saved, but many buildings were damaged and several people were hurt. Mireille sat beside Hyanwu's medical bed and watched his chest rise and fall as he breathed. "He is going to be fine," Sujin told her. "The injuries look worse than they are. He should wake up soon." "Why did he do it?" Mireille asked quietly. "He could have been killed protecting those children." "Because that is what humans do," Sujin replied. "They protect those who cannot protect themselves, even if it costs them everything." For the first time since leaving Velthara, Mireille began to think that maybe she had been wrong about humans. Maybe there was more to them than she had understood. 2 weeks after the battle on Zarian, Mireille found herself watching Hyanwu work in the ship's small library. He was reading reports about their next diplomatic mission and making notes on a tablet computer. His injuries had healed, but she could still see faint scars on his hands from when he had protected those alien children. The Canary warrior had changed since that day. She no longer criticized everything the humans did, and sometimes she even helped with ship duties. She still did not understand humans completely, but she was beginning to see that they were not as primitive as she had believed. "Captain," she said, sitting down across from him at the small table, "can I ask you something about human history?" "Of course," Hyanwu replied, looking up from his work. "What do you want to know?" "Your people have been in space for less than 100 years, he said. "But your planet has existed for billions. How did you survive so long without advanced technology?" Hyanwu leaned back in his chair and smiled slightly. "That is a long story," he said. "Earth has always been a dangerous place. Diseases, wars, natural disasters, ice ages. We learned to survive by working together and never giving up." Mireille listened as he told her about human history. The great plagues that killed millions but taught humans about medicine. The world wars that nearly destroyed civilization but showed them the value of peace. The famines and floods that killed many but made the survivors stronger. Your species should Have died out 1,000 times, she said with amazement. How did you keep going? Because humans do not know how to quit. Hein Wu replied, when things get bad, we get stubborn. When the whole world is against us, we stand together. When everyone says something is impossible, we prove them wrong. Their conversation was interrupted when the ship arrived at Aquinas, a beautiful water world covered in floating cities. The planet was famous for its crystal-clear oceans and the diplomatic conferences held in its underwater palaces. This was where the regional governors met to discuss trade and politics. The human delegation was invited to a formal dinner in the Grand Aquatic Palace, a massive structure built beneath the waves. The dining hall had walls made of transparent aluminum so guests could watch colorful fish swim by while they ate. The other diners were representatives from dozens of different worlds. Mireille wore her best formal uniform and tried to ignore the stares and whispers from other aliens. Many of them knew who she was and could not believe she was serving alongside humans. She kept her head high and her expression calm, but inside she felt angry and embarrassed. The dinner was going well until a group of Canary nobles arrived fashionably late. They were from the wealthy core worlds and looked down on everyone who lived on frontier planets. Their leader was a pompous male named Taemin, who wore expensive clothes and too much jewelry. Look what we have here, Taemin said in a loud voice as he noticed Mireille, the famous royal guard captain who lost to a hairless ape. How embarrassing for our entire species. The dining hall fell silent as every alien turned to watch what would happen. Mireille's claws extended slightly, but she forced herself to remain seated. Hein Wu put a gentle hand on her arm and shook his head slightly. It must be so humiliating. Taemin continued walking closer to their table to serve creatures that barely know how to use fire while real warriors lead fleets across the galaxy. Tell me, Mireille, do they make you clean their primitive ship? That is enough, Mireille said, standing up slowly. Her voice was quiet, but every word carried danger. Did I hurt your feelings? Taemin laughed. The great warrior has become a pet for animals. Perhaps you have forgotten what honor means. Perhaps you enjoy being a servant to inferior beings. Xunwu started to stand, but Mireille was already moving. She crossed the distance between them in 2 quick steps and grabbed Taemin by the front of his expensive shirt. Her claws pressed against his throat just hard enough to draw tiny drops of blood. Let me teach you about honor, she snarled. These humans have saved more lives in 2 months than you have in your entire worthless existence. They fight not for glory or conquest, but to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is true warrior spirit, something you would not recognize if it bit youth. Other Canary nobles reached for their weapons, but stopped when they saw the fury in Mireille's eyes. She looked ready to tear Taemin apart with her bare claws if anyone interfered. Humans have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that would have destroyed softer species, she continued. They have fought their way from caves to spaceships through determination and courage. They do not need fancy weapons or ancient bloodlines to prove their worth. They prove it every day through their actions. She released Taemin and he stumbled backward. Gasping for air, several aliens started clapping and cheering as the embarrassed nobles hurried away from the dining hall. Mireille sat back down and tried to calm her racing heart. Thank you, Hein Wu said quietly, but you did not need to defend us like that. Yes, I did, she replied. I have seen what humans are capable of. These fools think strength comes from weapons and technology, but you have shown me that real strength comes from here. She touched her chest where her heart was. Later that night, Mireille stood alone on the observation deck of Souls Pride, watching the stars through the clear aluminum windows. She often came here when she needed to think, and lately she had been thinking about many strange new ideas. Hein Wu found her there an hour before dawn and stood beside her. Without speaking, they watched a distant nebula paint the darkness with colors that had no names in any language. I have been wondering, she said, finally, what it would be like to see Earth. You would probably hate it, Hein Wu replied with a small smile. It is not very advanced compared to the core worlds. No floating cities or crystal palaces, just blue oceans and green forests and billions of humans trying to make their lives better. That sounds wonderful, she said, surprising them both with her honesty. On Canary Prime, everything is about war and conquest and proving who is strongest. I have never seen a place where people just try to live peacefully. Earth has wars too, Hein Wu admitted. Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes and sometimes we fight each other, But we always try to learn from our failures and do better next time. Is the why you risked your life on Zarian? She asked. Because you want to do better. I risked my life because those people needed help. He said. It was not complicated or noble. I just could not walk away from someone in trouble. Mireille turned to look at his face in the starlight. She was beginning to understand that this simple human morality was actually the most complex and beautiful thing she had ever encountered. Humans did not help others because of ancient laws or warrior codes. They helped because their hearts told them it was right. I think, she said slowly, that I'm starting to understand what makes humans so dangerous to the established order. You make other species want to be better than they are. You make them question why things have always been done a certain way. Is that bad? Hyunwoo asked. No, she replied after a long moment. I think it might be the most important thing in the galaxy. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars and thinking about worlds they had seen and worlds they had yet to discover. Neither of them knew that their growing friendship was about to be tested in ways they could not imagine. The message came when Seoul's Pride was halfway back to Velthara for the Galactic Council Summit. It was marked with the highest priority codes and bore the seal of the Supreme Guard Command. Mireille read it in her quarters with growing horror, as each line revealed how her past was about to destroy her future. Captain Mireille, the message read: you are ordered to report immediately to Supreme Guard Commander Dong Ho upon arrival at the Imperial Capital. Your extended absence from duty and your association with alien primitives has caused concern among the High Command. Be prepared to account for your actions and resume your proper responsibilities. But it was the second message that made her blood run cold. This one came from her family's ancestral home on Canary Prime and was written in her mother's careful handwriting. My dear daughter, it began, I hope this message finds you well. Though reports of your recent activities have reached us here, we understand you have been serving among humans as part of some diplomatic arrangement. However, you must remember that your engagement to Prince J1 of the Stellar Kingdom still stands. The wedding has been delayed but not cancelled. His Royal Highness expects to claim his bride when you return to civilized space. Please do not bring dishonor to our family name by forgetting your duties. Mireille stared at the messages until the words began to blur. She had been so focused on her new life aboard the human ship that she had pushed all thoughts of her old obligations to the back of her mind, but now reality was crashing down on her like a falling mountain. The engagement had been arranged when she was barely an adult as part of a political alliance between two powerful Canary houses. She had accepted it without question because that was what duty demanded, but that was before she had met humans who chose their own paths in life. A soft knock on her door interrupted her dark thoughts. Come in, she called. Trying to keep her voice steady, Hyunwoo entered carrying 2 cups of the herbal tea that humans seemed to drink constantly. I brought you some chamomile, he said. Dr. Sujin says it helps with stress. You looked upset at dinner. Mireille took the cup but did not drink. She could not meet his eyes as she spoke. There is something I need to tell you, she said. Something about my past that will change everything between us. Hyunwoo sat down in the small chair across from her bunk and waited patiently for her to continue. His calm presence usually made her feel better, but tonight it only made things worse. I am engaged to be married, she said finally. The arrangement was made years ago to strengthen ties between our families. I had forgotten about it while serving with your crew, but now I am being summoned home. The cup in Hyunwoo's hands stopped moving halfway to his mouth. Oh, he said quietly after a long pause. I see. Do you? Mireille asked with bitterness in her voice. Do you understand that? When we reach Velthara, I will be taken away from this ship and given to a male I have never loved. I will be expected to produce heirs and smile at diplomatic functions while my husband makes deals with other noble families. That sounds terrible, Hyunwoo said, but his voice was carefully neutral. What do you want to do about it? What I want does not matter, she replied, standing up and pacing around the small room. What I want has never mattered. I am a tool to be used by my family and my species for political gain. That is how things have always been done, but that does not mean it is how things should always be done, Hyunwoo said gently. You have choices, Mireille. You can decide what kind of life you want to live. Mireille laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. You do not understand Canary society. If I refuse this marriage, I bring shame to my entire family. My younger siblings will suffer for my selfishness, other families will refuse to deal with us, our trade agreements will fail. People will lose their jobs and their homes, so you will sacrifice your happiness to prevent that from happening, he asked. What else can I do? She demanded, turning to face him with tears in her yellow eyes. I have seen how humans live with freedom and choice and love, but I am not human. I cannot just decide to be something different the next day. Soul's pride docked at Velthara's orbital station, and Mireille's fears became reality. A full honor guard of Canary warriors waited at the airlock. Led by Supreme Guard Commander Dong Ho, he was an enormous male with battle scars covering his gray fur and cold amber eyes that had seen too much war, Captain. Mireille, he said formally, you will come with us immediately, your service to the alien delegation is finished. Wait, Haiyan Wu said, stepping forward. She is part of our diplomatic team. We need her for the council meetings. Your needs are irrelevant, human. Dong Ho replied without looking at him. The captain belongs to her own people now, and she has duties to fulfill. Mireille looked back at Haiyan Wu and his crew with an expression of desperate sadness, but she followed the honor guard without argument. She had given her word to serve until the mission was complete, but apparently her commanders had other plans. 3 days later, the Grander Council began its sessions, and Mireille found herself standing beside Prince J1 in the royal viewing gallery. He was everything a Canary noble should be: tall, handsome, wealthy, and completely convinced of his own superiority. He wore clothes that cost more than most people earned in a year, and treated servants like they were invisible. My dear Mireille, he said as they watched the human delegation take their seats far below, I'm so pleased to finally meet my future wife. I had feared that your time among primitives might have damaged your proper upbringing. I am fine, Your Highness, she replied in the flat, emotionless voice she had learned to use at court functions. Excellent, he said, not noticing her lack of enthusiasm. I have wonderful plans for our wedding. It will be the social event of the season, with guests from every major world. We will show the galaxy what true Canary nobility looks like. Down on the council floor, Haiyan Wu was presenting Earth's proposal for expanded trade relations. His speech was passionate and logical as he explained how human innovation could benefit every member species. Mireille found herself leaning forward to catch every word. What fascinating creatures, Prince J1 said, following her gaze. It is amusing how they try to imitate civilized behavior. Tell me, my dear, what was it like living among such primitives? Did they try to teach you their quaint little customs? They taught me about honor, she said quietly. Honor? J1 laughed. The concept of honor requires a certain level of intelligence and breeding that lesser species simply do not possess. I am sure they meant well, but true honor is something that must be bred into noble bloodlines over many generations. Mireille felt her claws extend slightly as anger built up inside her chest. She watched Han Wu finish his speech and sit down while various alien delegates asked questions. Many of them seemed genuinely interested in working with humans. I notice you have been watching the human delegation quite intently, Prince J1 said with a hint of suspicion in his voice. I hope you have not developed any inappropriate attachments during your service assignment. No, Your Highness, she lied. Good, he replied, because I have decided to challenge their leader to a duel tomorrow. I want to demonstrate the superiority of noble breeding over primitive cunning. It will be quite entertaining. Mireille's heart stopped what she whispered. Oh yes, the prince continued obliviously. I plan to show the entire council what happens when inferiors try to rise above their proper station. The human defeated you through trickery and luck, but he will find that a true Canary warrior is a very different opponent. But why? She asked desperately. 'Cause my dear Prince J1 said with a cruel smile, he has corrupted my intended bride with his primitive notions of choice and individual freedom. Such concepts are dangerous to the natural order and must be corrected publicly. Mireille realized with growing horror that her future husband intended to kill Haiyan Wu not for honor or glory, but to punish her for daring to think she could choose her own destiny. The challenge would be announced tomorrow, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The challenge came during the morning session of the Galactic Council. Prince J1 stood up in the royal gallery, wearing his most expensive armor, and spoke in a voice that carried across the entire chamber. I, Prince J1 of the Stellar Kingdom, formally challenged the human called Haiyan Wu to single combat, he announced. The primitive has shown disrespect to noble traditions and corrupted proper thinking among our people. This insult must be answered with blood. The council chamber erupted in surprised voices as delegates from hundreds of worlds discussed this unexpected development. Empress Valera raised her hand for silence and looked down at the human delegation with those unreadable black eyes. Human, do you accept this challenge? Skedyon Wu stood slowly, and Mireille could see the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He knew this was not really about honor or respect. It was about power and control and the right of individuals to choose their own destinies. I accept, he said in a clear voice that reached every corner of the chamber. The duel was set for the next dawn in the same grand arena where Hyun Woo had fought Mireille months earlier, but this time the atmosphere was different. The crowd was larger and more hostile. Many aliens had come to see the uppity human put in his place by noble breeding and superior bloodline. Mireille spent the night before the fight pacing in her quarters like a caged animal. She had tried to visit Hyun Woo, but the royal guard prevented her from leaving the noble section of the palace. Prince Jae-won had made it clear that she was not to have any contact with the human delegation. At dawn, she took her place in the royal viewing box wearing formal court dress that felt like a prison. Her future husband sat beside her looking confident and relaxed. He had spent the evening boasting to other nobles about how quickly he would end the fight. Look at him down there, Jae-won said, pointing at Hyun Woo as he entered the arena. The poor creature actually thinks he has a chance against superior breeding. How amusing. Mireille said nothing, but her claws dug deep gouges in the armrests of her chair as she watched Hyun Woo prepare for what might be his final battle. He looked small and alone on the vast arena floor, facing an opponent who was bigger, stronger, and equipped with the finest weapons money could buy. Prince Jae-won entered the arena to thunderous applause from the noble sections. He wore ceremonial battle armor covered in precious metals and carried weapons that had been blessed by high priests. His energy sword hummed with power, and his shield generator created a shimmering barrier around his body. The arena master read the same ancient rules, but everyone knew this fight would be different. Jae-won had not come here to test skill or prove honor. He had come to make a statement about the natural order of things and the price of challenging established power. Begin, the arena master shouted. Prince Jae-won attacked immediately, but unlike Mireille, he fought without honor. His weapons were modified with illegal enhancements that made them deadlier. His armor included hidden systems that boosted his speed and strength beyond natural limits. He intended to crush the human quickly and brutally, but Hyun Woo had learned much during his months among the stars. Mireille had secretly trained him in advanced combat techniques during their time together, and he had studied recordings of Kanari fighting styles. He moved differently now, with confidence born of experience. The crowd noticed the change immediately. This was not the same primitive human who had stumbled through his first arena fight. This was a warrior who had faced pirates and saved lives and earned the loyalty of his crew through deed rather than bloodline. One's illegal modifications should have ended the fight quickly, but human adaptability proved stronger than alien technology. Every time the prince thought he had the advantage, Hyun Woo found a new way to survive and counterattack. The turning point came when Jae-won's cheating became obvious to everyone watching. His sword moved faster than his natural reflexes should allow, and his armor absorbed impacts that should have staggered him. Several council delegates stood up and pointed at the illegal modifications. Foul play, one alien delegate shouted. He uses forbidden enhancements. The arena master tried to stop the fight, but Prince Jae-won ignored the command. He was too proud to admit his cheating and too angry to accept defeat. He pressed his attack with increasing desperation as his reputation